Hey folks, Kevin here. Well, this is another episode of Ask Me Anything. Recently I had posted a video about the chicken coop, removing all of the old wood chips that have been decomposed over time and brought in new fresh wood chips. And the reason that we do it this time of year is because the temperature's dropping, like this morning is 43 degrees Fahrenheit here. And it gets too cold for our potted plants, such as our figs, our bananas, our citrus and all, and we no longer have bananas. And one of the things I talked about was installing these gates inside of the chicken and duck coop, because last year we didn't have the gates installed, and we had the figs, the citrus, some herbs, and you can hear Betty in the background. We had figs, citrus, banana trees, and various herb trees as well in here. And I didn't have the gates up, and there were more chickens at that time, more ducks, and there was Jessie the goose. And as a result, we had lots of loss of fig trees, mostly our citrus trees, and all of our bananas got wiped out as well. And the potted plants stay in here through the whole winter time. Now the leaves will start falling off the fig trees soon, and they're starting to turn yellow right now. But Tim from Tim's Homestead had a really important question. He mentioned that in his food forest, he had fences around each one of the trees, similar to what we've done here in the past. But and the weeds really grow up around the base of those trees, and they can get overwhelming. So Tim removed the fences from around his small trees, his apples, his apricots, and plums. And what he was concerned about after watching the video about all of the chickens and ducks and goose destroying so many of the trees that we had here overwintered, he asked, geez, do I have to worry about the ducks and the chickens doing damage in his food forest? Because his goal was, instead of having all the small little fences around individual trees, is to actually have the whole area fenced off and let the ducks and chickens work through the whole area, because it could potentially be beneficial. Well, the quick and dirty answer is yes. No, I don't think that the chickens and ducks will do damage in your food forest. We've had the ducks, the chickens, all sorts of wildlife come through every single day in our food forest, and we've never really had troubles, with the exception of deer and voles. There are other non-common things that we've had happen as well. But those are the culprits of most of the damage of the fruit and nut trees in our food forests. The reason that so much damage was done inside of the chicken coop here was, one, I didn't have the fence up, and you have a significant number of birds that are inside, and they're used to foraging for food. So the ducks, for instance, they're used to eating all of the invertebrates plus the fresh young green material that's coming up. Now, we were feeding them greens, but the greens would be laying on the floor. We'd come in and set the greens down, and yes, they would pick through all of that, but it's only natural from the forage and reach up and pick leaves off of the trees and all. And then the goose, he's the one who really started them going after the bark, the cambium, digging down through to the cambium layer on all of those small trees and all. And the figs came back, no big deal with that, but I think it's more of a social activity, and they get bored. They're used to foraging all the time, and once a couple of them start doing it, they will go for it. However, if there are, in a food forest, if there are all of those luscious greens coming up all the time, and those are weeds, weed seeds, all of those sorts of things, those are great things for the ducks and the chickens to go at. And the chickens are going to scratch and peck, and the ducks are going to get into it. And I know, Tim, that you have a pond that's a ways away from the area, and I know that you have some wet spots. I would say, if it's possible, to have some low areas that could be areas where the ducks can get into. And for example, Our neighbors' ducks come over to our property all the time, and they raise ducks, and they love not just our ponds, but they love our swales as well. So they'll always be foraging through the swales, and there's all of the weeds that are growing up in the swales, all the weed seeds there, and every time it rains, they're in there foraging. They're getting all the little invertebrates in there as well. So if you can create a little wetland area within your food forest, if that's possible, even if they're small areas, that can really take up the time, give the ducks something to do as well. Having different, not just the levels of the food forest, we think of the 7 layers of the food forest from the root zone, you know, the root zone, the ground cover, the herb layer, the bush layer, the vining layer, the subcanopy layer, the upper canopy layers. We think of those things, but also the topography. When we're talking about ducks, they really want to get down into those really low spots where it's more moist and all, where they can stick their little bills and get into the area. And one of the things that I found is the ducks actually love the areas where the wood chips, especially older wood chips, over a year old, or over a year old, where there's soil in between the wood chips. The ducks love to stick their bills in there. And if you create little puddles in the areas where the little depressions in areas and have wood chips in there, the ducks will gravitate towards that, and they'll be sticking their bills down in there all the time. Again, swales, depressions, wood chip areas that are partially decomposed are areas where the ducks will go to. And certainly the chickens really like going to the higher spots. So if you have things mounded up, the chickens will be preoccupied with, you know, like we've done here in previous videos, we've shown that we've piled up their waste during the winter months, add hay, straw, or leaves to the waste, along with our vegetable material that we go through during the summertime, during the winter months, add it up, repile it up. Well, the chickens are like little entropy engines. They're going to go ahead and break down that pile, and it'll almost get to level where the pile will no longer be there. So having the depressions that get wet are great for the ducks. Having the mounds that the chickens can break down and tear down are areas that I would try to design in your food forest for the younger trees. Those trees less than 2 inches in diameter and all. So those are things that I would think about. I also would be planting the sorts of plants along the margins that all of them would like as well. So those would be some of the things that I would think about. Keeping them busy, keeping them occupied, and designing the systems so that their social needs are met. And foraging, scratching and pecking, and sticking their bills into the areas are a very enjoyable social activity for all of those birds. So I hope this helped out with answering that question. If you have any more questions or comments, please leave them below. If you found this of value, found it informative, inspiring, please give us a thumbs up, share it with your friends, hit that bell icon if you want to be notified when we post more videos. Thanks so much, folks, and have a super fantastic day. Bye-bye now.